In 2000, they won a provincial championship. Steve was with the 1999 Ross Shep team that won a provincial championship as well. And Spencer was on the team in 2001 for the three-peat for the T-Birds that won the provincial championship as well. I still say the finest teams in Alberta history. Three-peat is something that nobody else has done. And these guys were great players. Spencer played at the University of Alberta and at Concordia. Steve played in the United States, of course, and still is very active, both coaching and some playing in 3x3. So, guys, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So we talked about, we had a little bit of a different take for our poll question about, there's some big surprises in the season so far. So, Spencer, I'll go to you. Is it OKC's slide? Because they looked invincible. What was it, 24-1 at one point? And then San Antonio seemed to really unsettle them. The Celtics have surprised everybody, I think, losing Tatum to what may be a season-ending injury, although there's lots of rumors that he'll be back for the playoffs. The Knicks are sputtering. They, I think, were the clear heavy favorites. People were putting them like second or third in the power rankings in the league, but now they're really struggling. And I think a big surprise is Phoenix is resurgent. I mean, they were terrible the last few years. And Dylan Brooks, the Canadian, who you would never associate with a huge turnaround, has been a real spark for them. But if you had to pick between those four, what would you say is the biggest surprise?
Probably OKC. Yeah, just because they came out so hot.
Yeah.
And now they're sputtering a bit, like you said. I think that's normal, though, over the course of the season. It's so hard to keep that up over so many games.
Exactly. It's often said it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that really, I think, shows through. But I'll go to you, Steve, on this one. That's partially true. And Josh made an interesting point in a discussion we were having a little bit earlier. Can you point to the Thunder's youth a bit, even though they're the defending NBA champions? They're still awfully young, so there's still a learning curve in there, isn't there?
There is. Also speaks to how good the league has gotten. Teams have accumulated talent. Guys are probably ahead of schedule in certain cases of what people expected of them. I don't think in the Spurs case they thought that their guards were going to be as good as they have been this quickly. I think what's interesting also too about OKC's sputter is that they don't shoot the ball particularly well, especially over this stretch, which is not rocket science to point out. But Caruso's not a really good shooter. Dort has shot the ball poorly this year, or at least it's gone way down from last year. And if teams are going to make any gambles on how do we beat these guys, you can see over the last however many games, I believe it's 10 or 11, the Spurs were the ones that did it the clearest, where they just said, like, go ahead and shoot. It's interesting seeing NBA teams make that choice now, where they'll leave guys in the corner and just say, if you make 7 threes today, good for you. That's an approach I saw 10, 11 years ago playing 5-on-5 in Europe, where a coach would just say flat out, like, if this guy's open, don't guard him. And just say, like, if he makes 10 threes today, that's for the coach. That's for me. And we had a guy on our team in Switzerland 10 years ago that was just abysmal behind the three-point line. And when we were good, teams just made the conscientious choice to switch to leave him and don't guard him. And it really hurt us because it throws you for a loop of having a player so wide open that they think of, I should probably shoot it. And that's exactly what the other team wants. You can see that the Spurs in particular have made that choice with Caruso, where it's shoot 10, man. You're not gonna make enough to beat us.
Well, and I think too the more conscious efforts by the Spurs that they made to get the ball out of SGA's hands quicker. Mm-hmm. Like they really made an effort, and that led to open shots for Caruso and Dort. I always think back, Spence, at Concordia. I remember a couple of players who I would ask why they took that three, and they said, because I'm open. I said, there's a reason for that. Yeah. Yeah, there's an absolute reason for that. They want you open because they know, that isn't your best shot. So let's talk a little NBA before we dive into the NCAA, which is really why what I'm really excited about talking about. So, Steve, we've got trades. We had a trade that last year we had the blockbuster trade, the most bizarre, one of the most bizarre trades in NBA history, with sending Luka to the Lakers for not much. AD often injured again. Anthony Davis. And now you've got Trae Young, who has been a premier all-star guard, four-time all-star for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
It was interesting because fellow Thunderbird is the GM of the Atlanta Hawks, Ansi Salah.
Yeah.
And Ansi is not. He has come in with a bang, and he's been determined to remake this Hawk lineup. And it became apparent as the Hawks were winning without Trae Young that they were going to make a move. A guy like Trae Young's hard to play with, isn't it? Like he ball dominant point guard, small, takes a lot of awkward shots, good passer, but a lot of times makes passes at awkward times and is really a liability on defense. Were you surprised at the trade? I guess the gist of my question, a lot of people have said, well, they didn't get enough for him. Now, this isn't Luka bad. C.J. McCollum's a really good player. Kispert's a real good role player. But did they get enough, or is it addition by subtraction? More important to get his salary and style of play out of the organization to try to add new talent around the pretty darn good core that they have right now?
It's probably a few of those things. It's well documented how much Trae Young struggles defensively in the NBA and how that's so heavily targeted by other teams. It's been pointed out that McCollum is not a huge upgrade on defense, but at least you're getting a little more steadiness, probably a pretty good veteran leadership presence in the locker room.
Always seems like teams like having him as part of the rotation.
There's always seems to be a place, and he's a guy that is easy to like. Where I think it gets interesting for Atlanta is Ansi has made good moves. You could tell last year when they didn't extend Trae Young that it was clear that they're probably going to move away from him. All the talk was around that. I don't think that's a real profound observation. It doesn't seem like he's the easiest guy to play for. There's often times when you look at stats of, well, he leads the league in assists or he's high in assists, and it's like, yeah, and would you really want to play with him, though? And you oftentimes defaulted to, is it like the modern day assist stuff where you see those numbers of, well, only 7 players have averaged 22 and 7, and it's all guys who play in this era because it's like basically pass 2 dribbles, then take the steps, and that counts as an assist in the NBA. I think when you have a high assist guy, everyone would have wanted to play with Steve Nash. Everyone would have wanted to play with John Stockton. Everyone would want to play with Magic Johnson. Everyone would have wanted to play with Gary Payton. Those are guys that when they had assist numbers and were point guards, it's like if you were picking teams, you'd probably start with those guys. I have a really hard time believing that everyone would be like, well, I got to have Trae. I don't buy that. He doesn't really defend. The foul baiting stuff is weird and really difficult for other guys to play with the flow. Watching Atlanta a few times, you can see the team that they want to try and build, and it just doesn't seem to fit with what Trae Young does. There were some good pickups in the offseason for them, like Alexander Walker, really good pickup.
Really good pickup.
He's averaging almost 20.
Yeah,
so
Wolves really made a mistake.
They really made a mistake there.
Yeah.
So to circle back to answer your question, it's not as profound a trade as the Luka thing, not even in the same ballpark. It is funny that the Hawks could have drafted Luka, and now you're moving off the guy that you picked ahead of him, and that doesn't look great. But it's probably for them time to move on, and then also you got to get off the contract. In the way that the current structure is, you got to get off the money.
Yeah, the second apron is just killing everybody. Yeah. And when you start looking at getting like that, Spence, you were a point guard, and you were always a lot. And I think I can say this without blowing smoke. Everybody loved playing with you because you were always looking to make others better, and you scored when you had to.
Right.
You weren't looking to score. Ja Morant. Would you want to play with Ja Morant?
Focused Ja Morant or unfocused Ja Morant?
Ja Morant. Because you get both.
Yeah,
and you get locker room Ja Morant, and you get nightclub Ja Morant.
No. I think the easy answer is no. Someone like that, I wouldn't. I'd want to touch on something with Trae quickly.
Oh, please.
Going back to what Steve was talking about, I'm sorry to move off of this,
glad.
But there's no market for that contract. He's a player option next year. So teams don't have certainty over him past next year. He could opt out and be a free agent. So teams aren't going to be offering awesome players for Trae Young for 1 year. I think it's also Jalen Johnson's team. This guy's been unbelievable and maybe fast-tracked this trade a little bit because of his emergence. And I like what you said about Nikhil Alexander. Walker.
Huge acquisition.
Yeah, well, he's been great, and Dyson Daniels has been awesome. I think it changes the roles around the team to a more traditional style of how you build a winning team, and you can see it in the record without him.
Well, and that's the thing. You have a sample size that's meaningful.
You do.
That says we're better without this guy on the court.
With him. 2-8 with him, and I think 15-13 without him, or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some more guys saying, "Okay, now I know what role I'm slotted in."
Yes.
And not so much overlap. I think that's huge. And then I'm interested to see what they do with the expiring deal for CJ, because CJ has, I think, a $35 million deal or a $30 million deal, I don't know exactly, that expires this year. So maybe they can use that to get another asset.
I know.
That's probably part of the plan, I would think.
I know.
So I'm interested. I think Auncie's doing a great job.
He is. They had a great math department over at Ross Shep. Set Auncey up for success. So that's great.
What do you think about Jaw?
I wouldn't touch him with it. I wouldn't. There's not a player I'd want less on my team in the NBA than Ja Morant.
Ben Simmons? Okay.
Well, he's not in the NBA anymore. What's he doing now? He's doing something weird. Fishing. Yeah, he's fishing. So
good for him.
Ben Simmons. Yeah, that's
a big one, pal.
I'll tell you what. You're talking. That's really low. But no, I'm not a Ja Morant guy. Fabulous to watch when he's focused. Fabulous to watch. But you can't look at what Ja Morant brings to your organization with any kind of certainty. With the switch now, based on the success, I believe, of the Thunder and the emphasis on building culture, Denver building culture, Spurs building culture. I mean, how many years did the Spurs lose to get to here? A lot.
But you can run down the line. I mean, the Celtics lose Tatum, and they're still good.
Yes.
And that's
culture.
A few moves, but it's a foundational culture thing. And what the Grizzlies are proving is similar to what with the Hawks is you're also not winning with a superstar guy. There's a sample size to point to with the Grizzlies where you're not playing great with Ja, so there isn't something to point to for other teams of, well, he's this and he's that, but boy, they're playing great. Like, if we get this guy, he's going to really give us a boost. You can always default in the NBA to change of scenery that might excite them, but then when does it just be like a guy's a guy and problems are going to follow, and maybe he goes and he gets the right people around him and it completely changes. But what if it doesn't? Like Spencer was saying, with the amount of money involved now and how you can tie your franchise to some of these guys and struggle for an unforeseeable amount of time, why would you do that? Instead of just waiting, get to the summer, see what other assets you can get. There's so much more of an emphasis now of find shooters, get good role players, find them on deals, stockpile assets. There's going to be all this movement with the trades that have been made and the upcoming draft that's expected to be really good. Why do it?
Well, it's interesting, Spence. You're in business. A lot of businesses talk about being scalable. Being able to take a model and expand on it. The thing about the Thunder and Spur model of building through the draft, through surgical strategic trades, is that it is scalable. Every team can lose for a few years to build the right nucleus of good players.
Yep.
And it's different than LeBron going to Miami with Dwayne and bringing Chris in and, all this superstar stuff. So you've got a guy like Ja Morant. It's crickets right now. But you look at Giannis, too. That's going to be really hard. And Giannis, I think, wisely so. And I think it's pretty sincere. Giannis came out very strongly saying, I'm not asking to be traded. I want to be here. But Giannis is a bit of a different cat because his whole family's embedded in Milwaukee. And plus, when you take Giannis, you take his bro.
Which is not great.
He's not going to help your team. So I think the pathway forward for a lot of these teams is, you know what? We're going to lose until we get our guys, right?
Yeah, well, I think so. And you have to remember, with Auncey, he grew up with the Spurs. He was an intern in law school with the Spurs. So he learned with R.C. Buford and Greg Popovich in the organization. He then went to Golden State, also a system. So he's been in systems
that has been at their peak, too.
Been at their peak. Yeah, he's seen them at their peak of the powers. So he's been there. So he's trying to emulate that. And I know he hasn't been involved with OKC, but you mentioned that. And similar type of building strategy, I think, although that's a little bit of a unicorn because they've acquired so many assets. But I think they're really trying to build something sustainable for a long time. Auncey said he's not trying to build something for the short term. And I think in the NBA, that's probably the new thing that most people are going to start doing. Like the Celtics are doing it now. And it may be easier said than done, of course, but
you have to try.
Oh, for sure, especially with the money.
Yeah.
You can't build through free agency. It's very difficult to trade. It's so hard.
And the money's really an important part of this because the way that they have built the salary levels into it now, it is crippling to go into what they call the second apron, where you exceed it and you pay crippling amounts of money that even make the wealthiest billionaire balk at what you've got to spend to be competitive. So building this other way, and again, I go back to the point of being scalable. You can lose until you build to win.
Yep.
And then if you have the acumen in the front office that you draft wisely, you get some surprises. I mean, think of the absurdity of Nikola Jokic being a second-round draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that. You got to have a little bit of luck. But I think the whole trade market, and don't you guys feel that there's like with the Cooper Flagg, for instance, he's really good.
Sure.
Con Kneppel, he's really, really good. And there's a bunch of other really good rookies this year that the quality what I would say is that the players arriving now seem to be better overall players than we've seen. And now with this deep draft pool, I think teams are really seeing that, you know what, this can work for us. We really don't need to go out and sell the house in order to pick up a 25-point-a-game guy.
Sure. It's also been proven to show along the line with the NBA that if you are going to lose and if you are struggling, you do have to show that you are committed to it getting better. When you think back to the 76ers when they did their trust the process garbage, it was really bad and they wanted it to stay bad, and how it was over time easy to acknowledge you've created a losing mentality and a losing culture in a locker room. And then all of a sudden with the idea that we're going to get a great draft pick or we'll get a huge free agent coming in, it's not good in here because guys have been told over success or consecutive years, it's okay to be bad, guys. We're going to just be bad and we're going to be bad. And there wasn't any real plan towards, well, what happens when you're good and you still have that mentality of we're okay being bad. I like this part of it where you're not going to see the superstar guy in the middle of the season say, I just want to leave. And I'm not going to play, and I'm not going to do anything, and teams had no choice but to move them.
James Harden.
Yeah, and
nightmare.
It was a tough thing to be excited about with the NBA, and if you're going to see less of that, and there's more of a commitment to like, all right, we're going to wait, and we're going to maybe see where we can get more assets for this. We're not going to rush into just matching contracts and taking back something that we don't want. If that leads to a longer plan, then that also gives a fan base the opportunity to watch and say, we'll be good in 2 years, we'll be good in 3 years, and if we aren't, it's at least going to be a team that plays hard. I like to throw one more thing at you guys in this. I like that there's this thing in the NBA right now that seems that it's kind of become way more exciting and important for teams to just play hard. You mentioned the Phoenix Suns earlier, and when you watch them play, especially versus last year when it was the opposite, they play really hard. That seems to be like the Jazz aren't very good, but they do play hard. And some of these teams that have younger coaches that have come in that have established this urgency that wasn't existing with some of the same clubs a couple of years ago, where they're playing harder now, doesn't that give teams more optimism to think, if we do this and then add the right way, we're going to be good? Or we'll get better anyway.
I think that's a great point. And Spence, I'll jump over to you on this. It's a noticeable difference. I saw it last year in the Pacers. I mean, they weren't that good, but they played so hard. And they found a way to get not just to the NBA Finals, but to go to 7 games with a vastly inferior team, top to bottom, talent-wise, than, say, OKC. But they just were busting their butts out there. Even this year, I've watched them a couple of times. They're dreadful. They're having a dreadful year, but they play really hard. Yeah. Phoenix plays really hard every night. Heck, I never thought I'd say I really like watching the Portland Trailblazers play, but I'll tell you what, I really like watching them play. They're good. And the kid from Israel is fantastic. Yeah, what a talent. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I do. And I think maybe there's a little bit of a changing of the guard in the NBA. Yes. So the younger guys are coming in and they're so talented, and you're seeing the old guys, like we're getting up there in years. We're not to Paul yet, but we will be. But all the players we grew up with are getting older, and they're going to be out of the league soon. We're starting to see this abundance of talent, and I think maybe the mindset's different. I don't know.
Well, we're going a little long on this, but I want to kind of stay the pit bull on a poodle on this one. But I think pointing to Phoenix, Kevin Durant came out in an interview yesterday or the day before talking about how he was the scapegoat for Phoenix. And yeah, but you kind of earned it because you didn't play that hard. And you were hurt. You're older.
Yeah,
you were hurt. You got to be fair. But when you bring in a guy like Brooks, who has, in my mind, been one of the biggest surprises ever in the NBA, because when he came out of Oregon, I never expected him to be this kind of player. I've been wrong on a lot of things. Yeah. I didn't think Lou Dort was quite good enough to play in the NBA, and I thought Dylan Brooks would be pretty marginal, maybe a role player, but not that quick, not that explosive. The guy is an integral part of winning culture everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a little dramatic, flair for the dramatic. I like it.
You want him on your team.
You want him on your team. And the great thing is the other guys don't want to play against him, and he changes everybody around him. He doesn't compromise his effort. So I think that playing hard is really important, and the new guard coming in, kids are coming in and they only know what they know, and they step right in. I mean, Cooper Flagg's 19 years old.
Yeah, he's a freshman right now.
Barely, freshman in college, and he's coming in. Yeah. And he's just fine.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a break right now. I'm here with Steve Sir, Spencer Dorward, and we're going to come back and we're going to dive into the NCAA. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440. Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick, joined by Spencer Dorward, Steve Sir, here on your sports leader, Sports 1440. We're going to jump over to the NCAA now because, guys, I mean, Steve, you played in the NCAA a long time ago now. It's an unrecognizable world. Like when you were playing, coaches were being investigated for buying pizza for their team. Now you're paying guys millions of dollars just to come and play for a year. I'd love to see how much a lot of these guys go to class, but it's a pro business. I'll talk about some comments Jay Billis made about it in a little bit. But I'm going to start with you, Spence. There's been all of this fuss over Baylor picking up a guy who was drafted by the NBA, right? Played in the summer league, had his rights. You mentioned rights traded 3 times. Has been playing over in Europe as a pro. Now he's playing for Baylor in the second semester. What's that all about?
Yeah, so there's lots to unpack here. He was drafted in the 2023 year. 2023 draft, 31st overall. So when you're drafted in the second round, you don't get a guaranteed contract. He didn't sign a 2-way deal where he can go from the NBA to the G League back and forth, and he didn't sign a professional contract with an NBA team. So by the NCAA rules, he was never under their jurisdiction and rule book, ever, because he never played in the NCAA. So yes, he played pro. So the NCAA looks at that and they say, if you sign a 2-way contract or a pro contract in the NBA, you're done. You can't play for the NCAA, but he never did that. So what they do then is say, okay, well, what kind of pro league did he play in Europe? Was he a and there's a very specific definition, but they make their own interpretation of their own definition sometimes. So if you're an employee, a professional employee who's making a salary, you are not eligible to play in the NCAA. But if you're getting reimbursed for expenses and they put you up in a house and they pay your food, that's okay. So he falls under that with his pro experience in Europe.
So all they did is pay his rent and his food, apparently?
Yes. Yes. He was never deemed to be a professional on a professional contract, even in Europe. And you're seeing an influx of Europeans coming in to the NCAA who are under the same type of thing. His difference was that he was drafted in the NBA, which sent everyone going bonkers. This guy has a rookie card. He's guarding Wemby in Summer League. But under their rules, which no one really can understand them, he's allowed to play.
Isn't this indicative, Steve, of what has gone from one extreme to the other in the NCAA, where the rules before were so draconian for so long, like just iron-fisted governance and specific, even though, like Spence also said, the rules were open to interpretation in certain situations. to a point now where it's kind of they throwing the saloon doors open and you're just looking out over the Wild West prairie and saying, man, well, this can work too. You can get drafted in the NBA, play professionally overseas, and still play college basketball. But it goes far deeper than that.
It does. We said it when this happened. Once you go, you can't come back. You're not going to be able to all of a sudden blow the doors off and say, we're going to pay players, and not just pay players, we're going to pay them big money in certain cases. It's been, Patino voiced this, I think, a week or two ago. College basketball teams and and universities have bigger budgets than some EuroLeague teams. Why, if you were over playing in Europe, would you not want to come play college basketball, especially if there is open doors and interpretation for some of the rules that they have? Why wouldn't you? Like, I think we were talking about this the other night. If I'm a young player in, I don't know, third division in Germany, and I'm busting my butt and going to two-a-day practices, and I'm making 1,500 euros a month, because those guys exist, and they're top prospects, but they've been earmarked for, you'll be playing first division in Germany in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then you'll be on one of the big clubs, and then you'll kind of get your money back for how hard you've been working, but you'll get national team, and you'll play U23, and you'll do all this stuff, but you're not making money. If I'm 20 years old and I'm saying, man, Creighton's offering me what? I'm out of here. And why wouldn't you? And from that end of it, you can never fault the player, but what the NCAA has done is they blew the doors off of this. They didn't just open it up, they blew it off. And there's no going back on this now. So now you're going to have to figure out the right way to manage it. It's really hard to compare it to the era that I played in because, like as you mentioned,
2 different worlds.
If you gave money to a player on your team for gas because he, I don't know, drove to practice and couldn't get back home, you were possibly subject to not just a fine, but a suspension, some kind of thing where you were going to not be able to coach, not be able to work, all off of just helping one of your players out. So it's weird to compare at this point because it went from being so unhelpful where you couldn't do anything for your guys. And if you did, you had to do it with the tightest seal on what was going on, to all the way of like, I don't need to do anything for them because in certain cases, these guys are making more money than I am. Yeah. It's bizarre. Charlie
Baker-Paul came out. He's the president of the NCAA, and around this James Najee time, I think it was December 30th.
Yeah.
And he tweeted over the holidays about this, and he said, "Listen, like we try to enforce stuff, we just get taken to court, and we lose. However, right now, and there was also a big debate about Trenton Flowers, who plays for the Bulls, who's played 6 to 8 games, apparently being interested." In playing in NCAA. So that's why he came out with the statement saying, if you sign the two-way or you've played in the NBA, no, you're not playing. However, they've said stuff in the past that's got overturned. So the door's open and cracked. That's what people are worried about. I'm not saying it's good or bad.
No, but
there's good and bad, I think.
One of the absurd...
But that's the reality.
That is the reality. And the fact that they're talking about going to court, now that you've opened the floodgates, going to court, like, jokingly people say, well, LeBron's still got eligibility. He can go play at Ohio State, if he wants. Hey, you know what? He's got money to pay for lawyers. He takes the NCAA to court. He's a Buckeye. Probably in two years from now. He's 44 years old playing for the Buckeyes. Who knows what could happen now because you've gotten so liberal. You've eliminated JUCO eligibility. So you're a high school kid now. The likelihood, if you want a pathway into a D1 school, you're going to probably have to play JUCO in a lot more situations than you used to because freshmen, high school seniors aren't being recruited anymore like they used to be. Everybody's looking at older players overseas, other schools, transfer portal. Unless you're really in that upper echelon, it's going to be harder, I would say that. But a couple of the coaches have talked about ways that you could maybe slow this down and have some sort of control over what really is turning into an avalanche would be a salary cap, for instance. Yeah. But I don't know, again, if it's taken to court, where now that the cat's out of the bag, Steve, that the NCAA would be able to win that case.
If you only go off of what's already happened, they won't. Every lawsuit that the NCAA has, they lose. If it's in Tennessee or if it's in you'll just lose. So if we go off of what's already happened, decent chance that'll probably be the way it goes again. I do find it interesting, as a quick aside, and I'm not against it, but I just find it interesting, is how what you mentioned before, the keyword being like coaches and control, of they had everything buttoned up.
Everything.
And you could, and what I always found interesting with this, I remember thinking this when I was a player, is, man, these guys can leave with no issue. I have to transfer. I have to sit. I'm just changing schools. Like I'm the one taking the risk. I'm leaving whatever friends I've made. I'm leaving whatever comfort I've established at that school, and I'm moving to another spot. Like I left San Diego State. I was excited to go to Northern Arizona. I was really nervous. I didn't know any of those guys. You're transferring based on conversations with a coach. I might have transferred to Northern Arizona, and the coach that was there just up and left because he got another job. Yeah. And he could have, because that's the nature of the business. So when I think about what you said of coaches in control and they're trying to figure out how they can do this, I get it. You run these programs. You have to be able to, like we were talking before, even with the NBA, I want to be good now, but I want to be good next year. I want to be good the year after. How do I do that if I'm recruiting entirely new rosters every single year and I have no control over that? But where it's easy to, if you want to flip that coin, where it's easy to say, but, guys, if you were our guy who left Maryland, Willard,
yeah,
I'm never leaving Maryland. And it's like, cool, man, everybody knows you're talking to Villanova. This is a known thing. Yeah. And then you leave and go after you probably swore up and down you wouldn't. And why? Bigger job, more prestige, more money. And these negotiations take a long time through agents. And the kids are stuck there. Or they're without the coach that recruited them. So it's an interesting point to be at, where the coach is, like you said, I want some control over this. And it's like, but forever you guys had all the control. And then when you chose that it was your time to go make more money or coach a bigger program, you could just up and go, and the kids had to figure it out from there. I don't know what my formed opinion is on that in the end, but it sure is interesting to see now people scrambling for control when before they had all of it.
Can you guys stay into the next segment?
Yeah.
We'll talk about 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
Josh, why don't we take our break right now, and then we'll come back, because what I want to talk about is, all right, this is the lay of the land now. What's it going to be like in 5 years? Mm-hmm. Like, what, now that the lock is off the door and everybody's running through it, what could this evolve into? You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with Spence Dorward, Steve Sir, here on your sports leader, Sports 1440. Josh, before we get going in our last segment, let's go over the poll results from this week.
Poll results. It ended with the three-way tie.
It did.
It did. Nobody cared about the Knicks sputtering. That was not a surprise. Shocking, the Knicks.
Yes.
But yeah, three-way tie between the OKC's slide, the Celtics' success, and the Phoenix and their resurgence.
Again, let's give
on the
credit
back of Dylan Brooks.
Let's give credit where credit is due to our listeners. It's I think there are compelling reasons for all three of those choices. So we're here right now with Lila and Isabel Sir, along with their dad Steve and Spence Dorward, here at the studios, as Bill the weatherman used to say, the palatial studios here at Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall. We're talking about the NCAA and having a great discussion about this, and I really wanted to continue. So Spence, here's my preliminary remark. Mm-hmm. Jay Billis, I watched one of his blurbs that he does during the week, and he talked about change is here to stay.
Yeah.
By the way, the interest is at an all-time high. Yeah. People love what they're seeing. I would be hard-pressed to say that the top 25 teams right now they're about as good as I've ever seen. Yeah. 1 through 20, 1 through 50. Like, these guys can play.
Yeah, they're good.
So where does this go in 5 years? Like, do you think the NCAA is going to be able to put any guardrails up to slow this down? Or are schools going to be doing like the University of Utah, where they have a sports business management organization that's part of their university that they contract out to run the business of sport, raise the money to pay the athletes to recruit them in? Can the NCAA slow this down, or is just the herd of cats out and you're not going to get back in the corral?
I think it's a little bit like inflation. It doesn't come back down.
Yes.
When it goes up. No, I think we're here to stay.
Spoken like a true accountant.
Yeah. Let's talk about accounting.
Let's go into
sure
accounting.
All the listeners would love that. No, I think it's here to stay. I think that it's going to evolve. I think there's some opportunity. I think we're going to still see consolidation, even at a higher rate now, Paul, up from the mid-major schools and the smaller schools to the Power 5 conference schools. That will never stop. It can't. Why wouldn't you take the money if you're a player who's developed for 2 or 3 years at one of these mid-majors and then play for a year or two at a big school? So I think we're going to see that. I think there's going to be, I've read about collective bargaining where this will become a de facto pro league, but that's complicated, and people way smarter than us are probably going to try to figure that out where players are employees of the school and sign contracts.
Well, right now there's that football situation with the University of Washington where the quarterback signed a 2-year contract. Now signed it last week, and now this week wants out.
Yeah,
wants to go into the portal.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I good luck governing that. I mean,
exactly.
It's a mess.
But then you have Lane Kiffin, a lot of years left, and he leaves Mississippi State before the season's over.
Yep.
To head to LSU,
right? So
and gets away with it.
There's buyouts involved in that stuff. Maybe there'll be some rule changes around how often someone can transfer. I know the coaches would push for that.
Yes.
But why would the players agree to that? And they don't have any rights now to bargain. But again, this goes into the court, and a court's going to reverse the Wild West that we have now. Pretty hard to do because now there's precedence. I think there's an opportunity, though, and we touched on this in the break, but for mid-major coaches to be recruiting kids now who maybe would have been recruited by a bigger school a few years back when players couldn't be paid, to recruit those kids and say, listen, like, we know we only have you for a year or two. We're cool.
In fact, we want you for a year or two.
We don't want you more than that. We're going to develop you, and you're going to get paid. We have something in place, a program for you, where you will, if you're successful here, and we trust ourselves developing you, player, that you will get NIL money from a Power 5 school if you come here. Look at what we've done. And so there's an opportunity for mid-majors to do that.
So you become a farm. You become
your farm system.
Your farm system, a G League, that sort of thing.
Well, you're also going to see, I think, and sorry to talk here, but I think that you're going to see NBA teams how in the past they've stashed draft picks, right? So why would you stash a draft pick in Europe? Now,
don't need to anymore
when they can just go to the Big 12 and play for BYU.
Yeah,
like they can get paid more money. You have more access to them because they're right in your backyard. You can watch them play more. You have more control over their training situation. Like, it's going to become that for the NBA, I think, which you have some purists in college basketball who like hate hearing that. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not advocating for it. So there's really going to be a big divide between the mid-majors and the Power 5s.
But I think what the word purist now is completely different than it was 10 years ago, because that's the dodo bird. That's gone away. Okay, so Steve, where are the threats here to college basketball? And a couple of thoughts that I have about that. One of the things I've heard about court cases being prepared is years of eligibility. Why is it only 4? Yeah. What is that? What's that? Well, why can't I play here for 8 years? And then the other side, the G League guys who are making less money. Yeah. You know, traveling like the old Bull Durham in buses, basically, idea, but relative to Major League sport. Yeah. What are the threats to this system? Because the economies of scale here are incredible when you're talking about the millions and millions and millions of dollars being thrown at individual players, the budgets that have to be maintained, the need for outside sources of money. Is there any threat to the integrity of the game itself? Or is there any threat to the game itself? Is it just going to become purely a professional world where it's more like NBA teams and less like college teams?
Hard to say. It'll be interesting to see how the next 5 years look as they try to establish some kind of ground and foothold on how this all works. I was watching TCU play Kansas the other night, and TCU was up 9, I think, with 1:15 to go, and Kansas ends up tying it and winning in overtime. It was an awesome end of the game. This still exists where basketball can be incredibly fun to watch at that level. Last year's Final Four was one of the best Final Fours to watch in recent memory. And everybody knows that the salary and pay scale for all 4 of those teams is higher than a lot of clubs in Europe. So there is that part of it where Spencer mentioned basketball purist. Well, what's the basketball purist part? Do you really, really enjoy watching really good basketball, or do you just want it to be a way that it was? We know that it's never going to be that way anymore. So do we have to also shift our viewpoint on how this all works, and can you still enjoy the game? And it will hang over it like crazy as it continues to get figured out of what kind of control are the coaches able to take back. How are players going to continue to maneuver all of this where they just either bounce around and chase paychecks, or do they stay and try and win something? Do they want to have a name in a record book?
I'm going to inject something here, though, too, because you're 100% right. What about the trickle-down effect of this, though, on high school, club, AAU, and how young kids now start seeing themselves at earlier and earlier ages? Because I always remember, Steve, when we moved to Minneapolis and you met the kid, Cameron Taylor, I think was his name.
Cameron Taylor.
Top-ranked
5th grader in the country.
Top-ranked 5th grader in the country. Back in, 1990, 2000, in the year 2000. Like, how is this going to affect how kids see themselves, like, and what they're aspiring to as both players and as, advocates for themselves to make as much money as possible?
I'd throw something on top of that. How are adults going to behave when they see what kids are able to access at earlier ages now? And that's what's more concerning.
100%.
You're going to get people now that know that I can get my kid or I can get my guy on a roster. It doesn't even have to be a superstar. Can just be a solid role player at University of Wisconsin, and he can get paid, which means I can get paid.
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be, like we know in basketball, like we know in sport, like we know in everything, there are so many hangers-on and so many losers that are going to try and get their hooks into people and take whatever they can grab and prey on naivety, where it's, I helped you do this and I helped you do that. You wouldn't be where you are with me. And when I say this, having been in that world, it does exist. There's guys who are not averaging 20 who are guaranteed to go to the league that are just playing pretty good and destined to maybe play after college, and people are still trying to get their hooks in them. That existed 20 years ago. So now when you're talking about the amount of money that's going to go into kids just reaching the level and how that will affect behavior and messaging and where you place your importance, it does concern me now. Are you playing to be the best player you can be? Are you learning to deal with adversity? Are you learning to work on the little things so that I can reach a level and it's a huge dream accomplished? Or is it just, I want to get paid? That's going to present a lot of issues, I think, for young people, because it removes the soul of what has been special about collegiate sports, is because you go there and you have to learn about growing up, maturing, getting tougher, learning to deal with the fact that there's a player above me that's just better than me because they're older than me, and that's the way it is. Yeah. It's going to be harder, I think, to instill those messages and prepare kids. I'm hopeful that it doesn't turn into just all-out ugliness. But there is a path where you look at this where he's like, man, are 13-year-olds getting crazy messaging about money at a time in their life when they just should be playing and learning and having fun? I don't know.
That's great point.
They're allowed to make money now. Like, they're getting NIL deals now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Yes.
But a business can come and say, hey, I'll pay you X for this appearance or whatever.
Or to
Reebok,
hold a commitment. There's always talk about the
they
campfire.
funnel you towards a school. Yeah.
And I hear this. I've heard this a bunch in the States. Is you get kids, and it's it's whisper stuff and hush hush things where it's so and so has a commitment to a school, hasn't signed anything, but they're paying him $10,000 a month to keep the commitment, and he's a sophomore. So this is happening in a way already.
And there's the ugly underbelly. There's the ugly underbelly. On the surface, if you're just looking at pure business, name, image, and likeness, the people should be able to profit from their hard work and be put in situations to succeed. It's always that underbelly, and then it's up to the ethics of the people that are dictating. This has been great, Spence. You said it so well. We could talk about this for 4 hours, and I'm thinking maybe we'll do a podcast sometime just on this and bring in some other voices too, and spend a couple of hours just talking about this, because it's such a timely, and I'd love to talk about its implications in Canada, because they're very real. And for the first time, we're seeing the drain of mid-major, like the mid-major description you use of you're a good player in Canada now you're going south after you play 1 or 2 years for your club, because they're going, there's this 6'10" kid, let's get him down here for a couple of years and he can play for us. And
you saw it in hockey. WHL player went down to play for Penn State because of NIL.
Yeah, that's going to change all
sports.
of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Basketball.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
so, Spencer Dorward, thank you very much. Steve, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Lila, Isabel, thank you very much for being patient and for hanging in there with us today.